I'm going to give a talk about, it has two parts. The first part is about a little bit about content management of products and product management, and the other part is more technical. How many of you are iOS developers or developed for iOS at some point? About 30. Awesome. So I want to share with you an experience I had while developing an application for eBay's Innovation Center in Tel Aviv. We were nearing the first release of the application, and there were some tasks that needed to be done before release to the App Store. And one of them was content fine-tuning. I was tasked with that chore, and it meant sifting through a really long Word document with comments upon comments, and finding the final version of the content, and then implementing it in the application. Like so, you have an application, and there's a sentence, and it needs to turn into this sentence. So it's a pretty boring task for a software engineer, but someone has to do it. Not a big deal. You change the text in the application, and you recompile and install, and that's it. But if the change makes a modification to the actual UI of the application, so in here, you see that the number 3 goes a little bit down, and the link is now below the fold, so the user needs to scroll to see it. So whenever a thing like that happens, I need to go to the designer and get approval. But more often than not, I get a rejection. No, you can't have the 3 lines because all the reasons I said before. So now we go back to the drawing board, and that's, every time that happened, I was saying, why couldn't they thought about that before? Why did the content people, couldn't they see that the sentence would be 3 lines and would break? Why do I need to be involved here? I can do better things. I can fix bugs, do new features. I don't need to do this boring stuff. But the thing is, with mobile applications, you have to, in order to see the change on the actual app, you have to have a developer. You need to have someone do the changes in Xcode, recompile, and install on the actual device. So you have this kind of iteration, and it can iterate a few times until everybody is happy. But that's not the whole story. There's a lot more people involved. There's legal and marketing, and in my case, the development team was in Tel Aviv, and the legal and marketing people were in San Jose in California. So just to reach a decision can take a few days by emails, and that was it's a very inefficient process. And 2 things bug me here. First is, this is inefficient. There must be some kind of way to make it better. And the second thing that bugged me is, why do I need to do this boring thing? I need to find a way to delegate this work to something or someone else. So the whole thing would be easier, and I can do more interesting stuff. And as I was thinking about that, the first paradigm that came to my mind is web development. With web development, you have a web application that is live on the browser, and anyone can open the DevTool and change and see how the changes look on the actual app. You can change anything. If only there was a DevTool for mobile applications. Well, there is, actually. Debugger is one tool. It's a plugin you put in your native app, and it communicates with the server, and you open a web browser to that server, and you have a DevTool that shows the content of the application. And you can also modify some of that content and see the live results on your native app. That's a native app, not a WebView app. So that's great. I only need to convince all the people involved to use the DevTool. And also I need to fix some bugs in Pony Debugger because since 2 years ago, some things were broken, so they need to be fixed. You can't change actual text in the application. You can change attributes like alpha and location. But then I thought, convincing marketing and legal and all these people to open a dev tool and to edit the application, it's not rocket science. They can do it, but we put so much effort to make our applications beautiful and appealing to our customers. And why not have the same thing for dev tool. Why should it look like this? Maybe it should look like this. Have a WYSIWYG editor that allows you to do all the changes, and it will be much more fun to use. And so that's what I did. I built it. And I want to show you a demo. I'm going to show a live demo. If there's someone in the audience with a laptop that would like to volunteer and assist me, raise your hand if there is. Okay, great. So, what's your name? Alex? Yeah. Okay, Alex. So I'm going to shoot out to you in a couple of seconds. First, I want to show you the demo myself, and then you can help. So here we have the BetterContent. That's the website. Let's just rerun this. Okay. Okay. Maybe I don't have anything or something. Excuse me for a second, I'll try to fix that. If not, we're going to just move forward. Oh, I do now. Let's try it one more time. Okay, that's working. Sorry. So, I have the running app here, and this is the website. I'm going to refresh and launch. And just small as you can see. So this is the tool it's connected to the web app, to the native application, and whatever change I make in the application is reflected on the web. But what's cool is that I can just click here, and the changes are at runtime applied to the running app. So Alex, now if you can help me, and if you can go to BetterContent at .com. See this? Let me know. There's a link in the browser. And do you see it? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it worked. Okay. Thank you, Alex. So this is the cool tool. It's fun. It's easy. It's a no-brainer. I won't have any trouble convincing anyone to use it. This is a demo, a video of the demo I made in case my demo didn't work. I almost ended up using it because I saw I had a problem, but just a tip for presentation, always have a backup. So when I came to build BetterContent, I had this kind of set of requirements in my mind that I set out to build. It had to be easy to install with zero configuration. It had to be fun to use, and also allowed private access. So in this case, we access a publicly open server that Alex could open, but let's say we're developing an application and we don't want the possibility of the content to leak somewhere else. We want to host the server inside our firewall. And also I wanted it to be free and open source because I'm just this kind dude who like to share things. So now I'm going to dive a little bit deeper of the architecture of the tool, and there's going to be some code and technical stuff. From a bird's eye view, you have really two components here. You have your application with the BetterContent native plugin installed, and on the other hand, you have the web application. Your native application, when it's running, it sends a serialized version of the views to the web application. And the web application is responsible to parse that and display it on screen, also providing a way to edit the content, as you've seen editing the text, for example. And whenever an edit is made, modification JSON is sent back to the native application, and the BetterContent plugin parses it and then applies the changes at runtime to your app. And diving a little bit deeper into the native part. So step easy installation. If you have cocoapods in your project, then that's the installation. If you don't know cocoapods, it's a dependency management plugin for your Xcode applications, and I really recommend using it if you're not already. It makes life a lot more easy. Second, I said zero configuration. Zero configuration means really that after you install, you don't have to do anything. That means that the BetterContent plugin starts working immediately after you install it. You don't have to add code to your application. And that's what I did. And I used the mechanism, the static load method of classes in Objective-C. So in Objective-C runtime, when the application starts, the runtime loads all the classes into memory, and if a class implements the static load method, then that method gets called. So if you want to put something in your application that startups right as the application is loaded, even before the application didn't finish launching method is called, then this is the place. But you have to be careful because the order in which your custom classes are loaded into memory is not guaranteed. So if you're depending on another class in your load method, and that class hasn't been loaded yet, your application will crash real fast. Fortunately though, libraries and external and frameworks are guaranteed to load first. So in our case, the NS Notification Center, which is part of the Foundation framework, is guaranteed to load first, so it won't crash the application. And what I do here is I register a listener to the UI application did finish launching event, which is called after the UI did finish launching blah blah function you can call your application delegate. And what I do there is I start a timer. Every second, it scans all of the views in the application, starting from the key window and recursively going through all the views, and then saving them in a map. And it checks. If the map is different from the map from a second ago, then it sends its changes to the server, so the web application will update with whatever you're doing in your application. If there's no change, I'm not sending anything because no point in just using bandwidth. I need to use a unique key for each view, because when I get the modification JSON back from the server, I need to know which view to apply the changes to. So in my case, I figured memory address would be great. It's unique for each object. It's readily available. I don't have to do anything special. So I just use that as a key. And the value are the views themselves. But there's also an important caveat to look at here. An NS dictionary holds a strong reference to both keys and values, which means if I have a map with the views, the UI views as the values, I increase the retain count of these views by 1. And that can cause trouble because sometimes in an UI view controller or a view class, you have code written in the alloc method. And this code is usually you want to unset observers, I'll do some cleanup work. And this method only gets called when the retain count of the object reaches 0. But if I'm holding it in the map, it won't reach 0, and this code won't get called, and havoc may occur. So the solution is to hold weak references to the views, and I do that by using a proxy object that's also a pod, MA0ing ref, weak ref, it's in the bottom, really small. It's a proxy object, so I hold a reference to that, and that holds a weak reference to wherever I want. And if that weak reference goes off memory, then I get a nil, and I deal with it. Next is I need to choose which views I actually want to serialize. Not all views are interesting. Some views are intermediate views, which the runtime inserts into your view hierarchy. And if you ever inspected your application in runtime, you would have seen there's a lot of views that you haven't put there, but they're there. And they're used by the runtime to kind of like set up everything and make things smoother, but they don't have an effect on how the application looks after they've done their job. So it's not interesting for BetterContent. There's nothing to parse there. There's nothing to set. It's just an empty thing. So the way I implemented the serialization to the server is by using class categories. and I named it BDC label. And that's a good practice. If you use class categories, whether it's in your project or as a pod or anything, always prefix with 3 letters. In this case, BTC stands for BetterContent, also for Bitcoin. So there might be a clash, but I should probably change it. So I use BTC X for everything. So it wouldn't clash with any other, hopefully with any other class categories you might have in your application. And there are 4 methods, 2 here and 2 here, to be implemented. The first is BDC is serializable. If the view is implementing this function and it returns yes, it tells BetterContent, yes, serialize this view. This view is interesting. So only classes that, like UI label, which is interesting, UI image, and other classes you might think of, only these would be serialized to the server, and the runtime would ignore all the other views. Next is BTC class. And here I return the class name of the view. This is the class name by which the web application knows which view is this and how to draw it. So you have label and image, and obviously the web application displays them differently. And the reason I used a BTC class and not use the actual class of UI label or whatever it is twofold. First, UI label might have subclasses. You might have a subclass of UI label, and if I just return the name of the class in the web application, I need to recognize all these classes, which means more work. So this is easier. This applies to all of the subclasses. And also, if I want to, and we're going to talk about it, implementing an Android version, then the class names are different. But if I have a separate class name, then I can keep it consistent across platforms. Next is BTC attributes. And here I return all the interesting attributes of the view. So in case of a label, we have text, the font, the color, and a lot of other attributes which I didn't put here that are interesting, like alignment, background color, the actual font. The last is the update with components. This method gets called when we receive the modification JSON from the server and we want to apply the changes at runtime. So each class that has been identified by its memory address earlier, it receives this method called this function, and it is responsible to apply the changes to itself. In this case, it's just the text, as we saw in the demo. And that's it. That's basically the native part. And the next we have the server. The server is it's a pipe between the native and the web application. Not really interesting, but I want to go through some of the technologies I use. So there's WebSockets. I chose that as the communication service because it's vastly known. There's an implementation in every language. It's fast. It's low latency. A lot of example code out there. And also it works wherever HTTP works. So if you can access an HTTP site from your application or browser, then you can also open a WebSocket. And that's helpful if your company is behind some kind of firewall and you need to open ports to use special communication protocols. The basic WebSocket protocol, for those of you who are not familiar, there are 4 methods you need to implement, but the most interesting one is onMessage. Whenever a message is received through the WebSocket, the onMessage function gets called. And if you have different types of messages, then you have to parse these different types in onMessage and differentiate and act upon these different types of messages. Socket.io is a framework layer upon WebSockets, and it adds abilities like custom channels, custom messages, subscriptions, broadcast, and all these things that are supposed to make your life easier if you're having heavy use of the WebSocket. But in my case, I didn't use it. I just used vanilla WebSocket because it's just a pipe, and it's going to see shortly. I started out with a Heroku example application, and I chose Heroku because I wanted the service to be free, right? So Heroku provides a free service. If a developer wants to test it, they can just copy the server, and it can still be free, everything. And Heroku has an example project of a Node.js server that runs WebSockets. I just started with that. There was also an opportunity for me to learn Node, which I didn't really, I wasn't familiar with before. And I built upon that project until what you saw today. This is the code on the server. You see the on message is the part of the thing, and I have 3 different types of messages going on. The first is register, which is obvious. The second is ping. Before ping, I had a lot of channel breakdowns. The communication was being broken, and the channel would be closed. And I couldn't figure out why, so I just solved it by plugging a ping, which runs every 5 seconds, and this keeps everything alive. I know it's not the correct solution. There's probably something killing the WebSockets, but I'm too lazy to figure it out currently, so I just left the ping. And the last thing is UI. UI is the type of message that comes from the native or from the web application all the time. That's where all the magic happens, and this is all of it. If I receive a message from the native, then send it to the web. If I receive it from the web, then send it to the native. That's it. With one addition, every message that I receive from the native application, I save it in a variable called last native message. And the reason I do that is because I'm not sending a message from the native app every second, only when there's a change. So if the web application connects to the server after I sent the last message to the native, it wouldn't receive anything. So that's why I save the last message from the native. So whenever a web application is connected, it receives the last message immediately. And of course, other subsequent messages. The web application. It's a single app, pretty simple. I just use vanilla JavaScript, and it's breaking down into components. So every class component, here you see the label class. It's the same label we saw before in the native part, so these strings need to match. And each component has a draw function. The draw function is responsible to display the components on the web. And I receive the element. The element is already a DOM element, which is placed in the correct position in the browser. I haven't shown it, but every class in the native part also receives some common attributes to all views, like frame and background color. So these are common to all of the views, so you don't need to specify them for every UI class. And I only need to apply the attributes which are relevant to this class. So in this case, we have text and font. And the bulk of this method is about how to edit the content. I use content editable, and whenever a change is made, every keystroke on the content editable sends a modification JSON to the native app, which makes this cool effect, like you see immediate changes on your native app when you change it on the web. So that's the whole thing, basically. It's available on GitHub. And now I want to go through a little bit of other tools I've encountered during and after I've developed BetterContent. So after I've shown it to a few people, they told me, oh, there's this and that and this. So I want to share with you all of that. First is, of course, Pony Debugger, which I talked about earlier, which is a dev tool for the mobile app. It's very, very cool. It's not WYSIWYG, so it's less fun. It's also currently broken. You can't change text. It used to work, but now it doesn't work. There's an issue in GitHub with that, but I haven't delved into it. No one else yet. Next, we have Mac applications. They're really debugging applications for iOS. If you don't know Reveal and Spark Inspector and you're developing UI for your application, I recommend using it. There's a 30-day trial. It's really, really, really good debugging tool. Only it costs money, and it's also sort of a dev tool, so it's not very intuitive for non-developers. And it also it only runs on a Mac and only on Wi-Fi. So if your application is in 3G, the inspector wouldn't connect. Next, we have native extensions, which are free and open source. And there is pretty much opening a mini dev tool on your phone. And they're pretty handy, only if you want to edit text and do like extensive typing, it's not convenient because your phone or tablet is not meant for development. You want a keyboard if you're testing that. So it's not very convenient. And last, we have some A/B testing framework. These are web applications that live in the cloud, and your application connects to them. And they have a component they call a visual editor, which allows you to do basically what you saw in BetterContent. The thing is, the visual editor is only one feature of their whole testing suite, their A/B testing framework. So that's what they focus on. And if they have bugs in the visual editing thing, it's not going to be a high priority. They're also a little bit sluggish, and some features doesn't work. It doesn't. If you have a dialog on your app, it doesn't know. It doesn't see it. So you can't see dialogues, for example. And I'm still developing BetterContent. I'm currently applying and adding some more components, like the ability to edit images as well as text. But I also want to add Android support because there's no simulator that I know of on the Android. But if you do know, please approach me because I'm on the lookout. But one more interesting thing I want to say about this is that I read a blog post about the open source community and how wonderful it is that people are making stuff and sharing them with the world. But it also made a point that if you want to solve a problem, and you see there's another open source project which kind of solves a problem, but not exactly, you can either build it on your own, like I did, or you can try and contribute to the other project, and then you have one super helpful product instead of two separate products which do kind of the same thing. So I'd like to try that and try to implement BetterContent either in the Pony Debugger or one of the other open source tools. That would be a nice experiment for me to see how it goes. And lastly, that's the last thing. As I was working on BetterContent and keeping in mind the troubles of content management in mobile applications, I was thinking of if there could be a way to make a hands-free content management. And by that, I mean not having to have these awful Word documents with the application content. And these documents are never up to date. As soon as they're written, they're not up to date because the content of the application changes more rapidly. The source of the confusion here is that they're not deriving from the same source. The application gets its content from either in the code or in your zip files, or if you're a good practicing developer, then in your string file. But the document that goes around marketing and legal, it doesn't read from the same source. So it's bound to get out of date. And I thought, what if we can make some kind of solution that reads from the same source? So the application and the content document that everyone else is seeing are both from the same source. So they're always up to date. Keep in mind, this is just an idea. I haven't implemented it yet. And I'm running the risk of you stealing this idea and making millions. Well, this is how it goes, the idea. You'd have the thing, the plugin installed in your application. And the first time you run your application, it goes to the server and says, hey, do you have the content for me? And the server says, no, I don't have it. So the application just uses the local content that it has in the strings file to run. And while it does that, the application scrapes the content and sends it to the server, just as we saw earlier in the demo, right? All of the application content was streamed to the server. So now the server is creating its own version of the strings file as you are using your application. So each new stream in the application is sent to the server. So the server now has a visual element that shows the stream, and it is coupled to the actual strings file, which is a code file. You can use in code, and they're linked. So the next time I run the application, it asks the server, do you have content for me? And the server says, yes, here is the content. And your application downloads that content and uses it. But now, the server and the application are using the same content document, which is on the server. And if you want to update it, you just update it in the server, and the client is updated. Also, you have a visual editor. It's not just a long strings file. You don't edit the string file. You edit the actual thing in context. So it's much clearer what you are doing. Also, it has the benefit of if you have some kind of obscure view in your application, like there's no internet connection, or something that's an edge case screen that you wrote once, you usually forget about that. And when there's update to your application, you have to be really vigilant to test all of these edge cases. But if you just have these screens visual, then it's much easier to go, okay, check, I tested all of these, all right? I know all the content of the application. That's it. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Yeah, so people go with the mic.
Hi. Actually, 2 questions if you don't mind.
One. Okay.
It's small ones.
You will find him after, because we have 3, and if we have time.
Okay. Can you get back to the slide where you showed Facebook and Flipboard logo?
Yes.
Discuss for 5 minutes if there's 2 questions or more.
Yes?
Yeah. Can you please explain that again? Because I didn't get it.
It's a plugin in your application, okay? And the way it works is you install it with cocoapods, and they both kind of work as when you shake your device, menu pops up. As you can see in both sides, they're a little bit different. The Flipboard FLEX, the one on the right, is the more comprehensive one. The menu allows you to, it's a real dev tool. You can select any other element on screen. You can also move the menu around. So if the menu is hiding some element, you can just move the menu down, and then the element is viewable. And when you click that element, you get all of its attributes. You can edit anything. And then you just close the menu when you want, and you continue when you're out.
Okay, thanks.
Next. No next question. Next person. I will come back to your approach.
Hello. I just wanted to ask which library you use for the WebSockets connection.
So we're on the native or on the...
On the native.
On the native, I think it's SW, I forgot the name, but I can just check.
And only that?
No, I'll check it and tell you later.
Okay.
I think it's something Rocket.
Yes, Rocket. And only that?
And what?
Only this library for all?
Yes, I just use the plain interface of the WebSocket.
Okay.
So I tried to use Socket.io, but it was way too complex. I couldn't get it run at first, so I just went on over.
Okay, thanks.
Hello. I would like to ask what would happen if 2 or 3 people try to modify the same element from the website at the same time?
Great question. So currently, the last one to log in gains control. So the other 2, they would change things in the browser, but it wouldn't connect to anything.
Nothing would happen.
Right. I didn't implement any security measures yet or anything. So that's the current behavior. And you can think about, any type of thing you can want to implement.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So going through your Heroku app that you made through my laptop, I've seen that you can change only the text.
Right.
What if you want to change actual elements, as you would do with inspect element?
Like
Margins, anything else?
So I just implemented changing text, but I could assumably easily implement changing like the size of the text, or allowing you to upload an image and replace an image. It's just a matter of implementation. I hadn't gone into that because I have a full-time job.
So it's a
kind of a side project.
It's a plan though that you would implement those features?
Yeah. The first thing I want to implement is allowing to edit images. Because I think it would be cool. If you have other ideas,
yeah,
I'd be happy to hear.
Could you do it on GitHub?
A what?
Are you using it on GitHub?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If
So
you go to
then-
the website BetterContent,
Yeah.
rockslab.com, then there's a link to the GitHub.
Awesome.
One more question from.
I have one too.
Okay.
Okay, second question. I really don't get what is the point in editing in the browser if you can't save back. The second idea you described in the end
Right.
made much more sense to me.
Right.
So, for example, I see a screen on the web, I edit it, and I say, okay, I'm fine with it. And what do I have to do right now?
Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, here. So before, when you couldn't edit on the fly, then the content manager would come to the developer, me, and ask, let's do this change. Change this sentence to this sentence. And I have to do work. Sorry. I have to do work. And after a while, after I finish it, I show it back to the product manager. And now he looks at it and says, no, that's not good. Do another change. If you use BetterContent or something similar, I don't have to do anything. The content manager sits at his desk, he tries, it doesn't look okay, he changes it again, finally he sees something that works. Now he has to take a screenshot or copy the text and send me by email or anything, but at least I know now then that's it, that's the only thing I need to do. It's supposed to be okay because they already have seen it on the actual application. That's it here.
Okay, one last question by me. It's a rather technical one. So, as long as you have categories that actually define whether a view is, editable through BetterContent, why do you have to constantly and periodically traverse the whole view hierarchy, which is a computation expensive?
Right. So actually, I looked into how Pony Debugger works. Because Pony Debugger also knows how your application is structured. And Pony Debugger is looking into the view did attach and view did not attach. I forget the exact name, but it is connecting to the actual methods in the UI view class, and it swizzles them with its own version of method. So whenever these methods get called, the Pony Debugger knows about it and then calls the original method. That's how they work. I see it as a little bit of an intrusive. I like BetterContent to not meddle with the application at all, if possible. Just kind of be on the side. And I don't mind the added computational because it's not going live. It's for development purposes. So, and as you've seen, it's not too computational heavy. The application still runs. If you have something that it's heavy on the frames per second or something, then maybe it wouldn't work so well. But I haven't tested it on that.
One small question from the UX specialist point of view. Do you have a backlog or something with the changes? If 3 designers and 1 marketer makes some changes, do you have a backlog? How many changes?
So as I answered that guy over there, no. Whatever change you make, it's live.
Spontaneous, live, you can screenshot it and send it back to the developer.
It's not saved.
This is fine.
Okay. You mean on the running application? If it knows what's changed?
Yes.
No.
So,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, please,